Hello there, my fellow thinkers and dreamers. This is Mind Palace Musings, and I am your host, David Wellman. In the past two episodes, we've been talking about reality and if it is or is not. We've talked about reality as a simulation and reality as a dream. Today, we're going to talk about the possibility, however likely, maybe not, of us being in base reality. Now, base reality is a term used with the simulation argument, that being the base layer or the substrate in which all simulations are run from. What if we are there, in that reality? Reality can be defined as the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them, or the state or quality of having existence or substance. We'll be exploring the latter. Now, this is an interesting topic because it's kind of like going out there and shouting, "The world is a sphere!" and expecting people to react with controversy towards you. Now, some might, but those people are crackheads. It's not a contentious argument. It is just how things are accepted by most people. That being said, I'm going to try my best. So, let's get started. So, as is custom, we will get started with some assumptions. We do not live in a simulation, we do not live in a dream. Everything we can measure, record, graph, and chart is real, and everything that is real can be measured, recorded, graphed, and charted. Our senses are relaying the world to us as it is, and not doing any kind of weird mumbo-jumbo to change what we see and experience by a large degree. Although there is some small level, like our eyes seeing things upside down and our brains correcting that, but that doesn't mean the whole world is upside down, kind of thing. This is essentially the materialist's answer to reality, to existence, the great question. Science only asks for one miracle, that being that one day everything came from nothing. The goal of science is to explain everything else, and maybe one day to even explain that miracle. As mentioned, this is the world as modern science and biology accepts it. This is the substrate on which scientific culture and community is built on top of. This is the grand assumption. There's never the question of what is reality and how is reality. That's a question that isn't asked, unless that is the question itself, which we've discussed in the past two episodes. In this material universe, there's a rational explanation for absolutely everything, and every phenomenon in the universe can be explained with physics or mathematics, or some other form of science. Everything that we do not yet understand will one day be understood. And we accept that there are some things today that we don't understand. We've made leaps and strides from the days of bloodletting and witch trials and leeches because we've taken the time to study and chart and graph everything. This is very calming in many ways. Everything we understand today is due to work put in by humanity. It's us working together, usually, to explain the natural world, to understand this weird mossy rock that we accidentally gained sentience on. It makes the world less scary and mysterious, knowing that these methods will be refined as the years go on, and eventually there will be an explanation for absolutely everything. It also means that there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. There's no meaning. It's very easy to fall into a nihilistic hole. But applied optimistically, nihilism can actually be very good. From a biological standpoint, the meaning of life is to survive long enough to procreate, pass down your genes. But beyond that, meaning is yours to assign to life. And even considering that, I mean, there's enough humans. If you don't want to procreate, no one's going to judge you for it besides your grandparents, probably. I don't know. Maybe you have cool grandparents. I'm not going to make that assumption. So, I mentioned this rocky moss. What? This mossy rock. There's some water on it too. You know, the earth. And I mentioned how we just one day accidentally became sentient. And that brings us to our next topic, which is consciousness in a material world. The world being real and material doesn't really affect the question on consciousness. It's still possible that there is a higher power and that humans have a soul. It's possible that consciousness is a fundamental force of the universe that our brains tap into and filter down to a level that allows us to have this conscious experience. It's also possible the brain is a biological process and that when we die, that's it. The universe existing as matter and a byproduct of the Big Bang probably means all of this isn't generated by consciousness, as we discussed in one of the very earliest episodes of this podcast. But consciousness just becomes another aspect of the universe that we don't fully understand today, but we will understand it tomorrow. The same has been for radiation being a safe and fun, glowy substance to play with, diseases being caused by bad smells instead of tiny little creatures we call microorganisms, and the earth being flat because if it was round we'd all fall off. Now again, going from the materialist viewpoint, the consciousness is just a biological process. But the afterlife is also possible. Perhaps it's a parallel universe as explained by string theory, or perhaps the soul is a separate thread of the body that can get entangled in different states that we just cannot yet perceive. This is the Christian answer to what happens after death. The afterlife, not things to do with quantum entanglement and string theory. Modern science finds this to be unlikely, and it's pretty hard to measure. It probably is just a biological chemical process, and as mentioned, once someone dies, that's dead. This is a very death-centric episode, I'm sorry. Now, alongside it being the materialist's answer, it is also the atheist's answer. Now, when I was younger, and obviously I knew everything because I was young and arrogant, and I'm still young, but I should hope I'm somewhat less arrogant. I used to believe the Christian worldview was very convenient. It was easy to believe for most people, and it was just you go through your one little stint of life and then eternity. Nowadays, I actually believe the atheist or nihilistic worldview to be the convenient one. There's nothing to worry about. You live your life and then you get to rest forever. It's very comforting. One day we'll be accepted by the void. We came from nothing, and to nothing we shall return. I'm not going to be around to experience it, so why should I worry about it? And there's something morbidly calming and comforting in that. So, we've talked about the afterlife. What about the before life? Well, in our material world, which is what we live in based on the assumptions of this episode, there is no before life. Animals live and die, and it's a pure coincidence, a mere fluke of evolution that humans are even allowed to ask this question. Why should we be any different to the same animals we believe to not have souls, to not have any kind of sentient experience either before or after death? Again, as time goes on, humans are born, and them being born is mere circumstance. Without consciousness, they wouldn't even be around to experience this existential dread. It wouldn't be a question. It wouldn't matter. And without life, there's no consciousness. So it's all just millions of years that have come together to create this fluke of evolution. It goes then to make sense that after death, as before life, we await the comforting return of the void. We came from nothing and we will return to nothing. And it didn't seem to bother us before, so I'm sure it won't bother us after. Again, a very, very scary existential thought. This is one that used to grip me even as recently as last year. I was absolutely terrified of death. I did not want to stop existing, to stop experiencing. Now, I've since had some experiences that have basically eradicated that fear of death, but for those that haven't had that experience, who do have this worldview, I understand how alone it can feel. And yeah, it's one of those things of life, I suppose. Now, what about reincarnation? Well, again, a material universe doesn't really exclude the idea of reincarnation. The material of the planet may be permanent, but that doesn't mean that each living being is unique. If the consciousness is a fundamental force of the universe that we just cannot yet explain or measure, then it's possible that once we die, we simply attach to a new host. That makes consciousness sound like some kind of parasitic creature. Maybe it is. We don't know that it isn't. It's also just as likely that our brief stint of consciousness is simply a flash in the cosmic pan. Again, sorry, more death. I did apologize earlier. I'm going to apologize again for the potential existential angst I might be instilling right now. I promise we will end this episode on a good note. I just need to find it. So, sadly, being in a material reality, in base reality, that also means we have to talk about the permanence of the world. This is not a dream or a simulation, which means there is only one Earth. This planet is all we get until we can leave it. It's not like if we destroy it that we will wake up in a perhaps actual base reality or a different dream or simulation. If we destroy Earth due to climate collapse or nuclear war, that's it. No more humanity, no more existence. And we have completely wasted this random gift of sentience that the universe threw our way. Human life is precious in this case because each human is uniquely conscious with their own unique experience. Whether that consciousness is recycled or not, at that given point in time, that experience is unique. Ignoring solipsism, because that was a different episode. Every human dead is one less unique consciousness in the world. And even if we do eventually leave Earth, the universe is still on a timer. The heat death of the universe marches on. And even if parallel universes exist, those will all die too. Perhaps at that point, the universe ends and everything gets sucked into the giant black hole at the center of the universe, matter gets compressed to the size of a marble, and we have a big bang again, which means it all starts again, and actually everything is not as permanent or impermanent as we imagine it to be. Now that does bring in the question that if the universe is just the same matter recycled and remixed ad nauseum, ad infinitum, where did it come from in the first place? This is the sad part about living in 2020, is that we don't know the answers to these questions. Then again, if we did live in a time that did have the answers to these questions, we might not find it even that interesting. It's like, oh, yeah, you know, there was matter before the Big Bang, and now there's different matter. I don't know. So, the world is ending one day because at current trajectory we seem quite intent on destroying it with, soy farms and climate change denial and people not wanting to wear masks during a global pandemic. But that's not for me to question. I'm going to die one day, and I'm either going to experience some cool, exciting new state of being, or I'm not going to be able to worry about it anymore. So I'm chilled with that. But humanity at large has been trying to become immortal since prehistory. Alchemists have, for millennia, tried to find the fountain of youth, the philosopher's stone, phylacteries, and anything to just cling on to this material existence for longer. So what are our options in a material world lacking magic or the occult or spiritual enrichment? I don't know where I was going with that. Human biology is our greatest hurdle at the moment. It becomes a problem to solve rather than just another aspect of life. The only way to exist for longer is to extend the human lifespan, unless we consider the afterlife or reincarnation. In any case, dying isn't going to result in us waking up in a different layer of reality under these assumptions. Immortality may come by solving aging or finding a way to keep the consciousness going in a more suitable medium. Perhaps we find a way to map and transfer the human consciousness into an upload at the cloud. As a software developer, this seems unlikely because you'd only be creating a copy. There's no way to, at time of recording, to transfer a running program, which, that's what the consciousness is. It's electrical signals bouncing around in our meat space. Now, we may find a way to extract our brains and put them into some kind of jar that we could then perfectly monitor the conditions of and keep the brain going for much longer. And in that case, I guess it's the same with being uploaded to the cloud, but as long as you can keep that brain healthy, you can keep going. I think perhaps the most exciting idea is to slowly but surely replace every single neuron with a technology. Once you've replaced the entire brain, you suddenly no longer have an organic brain. You are obviously at risk of having your brain fail technologically, but assuming we're at this point of technology where we have the nanobots and the ability to replace neurons with artificial ones, I don't think that's much of an issue. Or we start making simulations and very complex VR games and simulated realities that run at a much faster time scale than real reality does. We may lay down in a chamber and experience entire lifetimes in an hour or a day or a month. And we're suddenly back at the simulation argument. Immortality is potentially an irresponsible inevitability, but I want to explore this fully in its own episode. So, what are the implications of us living in this base material reality? Well, you should live life to the fullest because it's probably all we get. Leave the planet in a better state than you found it because we probably won't get another one to ruin. Your experience is valid whether you believe it to be or not. Your own slice of existence is the most important thing you will ever experience, but that doesn't mean that you should live so selfishly as to destroy the experience of others. Live your life in a way that makes you happy without impeding on the happiness or healthiness or safety or existence of others. Do whatever you want because the universe doesn't care. It's a fluke you exist in the first place. Or don't. It's not for me to say. It doesn't matter if you're a good person. You may want to live one because you believe you'll be punished for eternity if you're not. I would personally say you should. just because I'm sure you want other people to be good to you. But at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter. So be good or don't. Just live in a way that makes sense to you. And there we have it, another installment of Existential Dread. You are welcome. I didn't mean to scare you or make you feel worse or better about your time here. It's simply another side of the coin. This coin having three sides, because this is the third episode in this mini-series. I don't know. Quantum supposition. The coin can have three faces. I don't care. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. I haven't actually recorded an episode in a while, which you will never know unless I had told you, because this is just going to get uploaded normally. But anyway, I now have an art Instagram and have started sharing my art on Reddit as well and getting some good feedback. So if you're interested in that, check out @David_Wellman. Yeah, otherwise, what else? Well, if you're enjoying the podcast so far, and I am definitely enjoying it, and I am really enjoying the feedback. So if you're enjoying it, like, favorite, subscribe, comment, share, tell your Samsung smart fridge that you're low on eggs and milk. Yeah, thank you. You can join the conversation on the subreddit r/MindPalaceMusings. You can follow the official Twitter account at mpm_podcast for regular updates. What else do we have? I don't know, we have other things. They are in the description. My fellow thinkers and dreamers, my dear seekers of truth and knowledge, thank you so much for listening. This has been Mind Palace Musings, and as always, I have been your host, David Wellman. Thanks for listening, and stay curious.